Good morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg and it is the 24th day of May 2024 and welcome to our show today. So I'm really excited that we have Darrell Castle back on and I'm sure he's going to be on in a minute. We were communicating this morning. Darrell had a few was having some problems with tears in his retina. So he's been through multiple surgeries and now he's back. He's back and I'm very happy. So we're going to try to have him on every Friday for the Castle Report. If you haven't gotten familiar with the Castle Report, do so because he's got quite a history. He's got quite a military history and his perspective on things is well informed, very intelligent and such. And outside of that, we also have Off the Grid. I'm going to try to continue to devote quite a bit of time to Off the Grid. First aid and off the grid living and preparedness and all that sort of thing. So with that said, I'm going to bring on my off the grid team here, Karen the Riveter and Ralph the IT guy. How are you guys doing?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I think Dr. David's going to be on today, but he's got life that's, we all have people in our lives that we take care of. And this is one of the days for David, but he said he's going to be on when he can. So what's going on in Karen and Ralph world?
Well, I got straw on my strawberries.
Good. How's that working?
I got to go outside and check. I got one berry that turned red yesterday, and I covered it up to try to keep the birds from finding it. Oops. Try to keep the birds from finding it. And so I might have to pick one today. So that's exciting. They're all doing good so far. And our meat birds are about 3 weeks, I think, out from butchering day. And we'll start with the bigger ones and probably the cockerels and let the young pullet hens grow a little bit more because they're always smaller than the boys. So it might take us a couple of days to do the processing of the boys first. And
so
still working on spring cleaning. That's why I'm a little bit out of breath as I'm coming up and down the stairs. It's going to get hot later today, so it's a little cooler upstairs. So if I mute myself, it's because I'm moving stuff around.
What's the temperature supposed to be today in Michigan, where we are, guys? Because we're all pretty close together in location, within an hour at least. Karen, you're out in Nanook land up there, but what's the temperature supposed to be?
I don't really know. I just know it's supposed to be hotter than yesterday.
Okay, well, we'll check in a minute. So while we're waiting for Darrell to get on this morning, he finishes up the Castle Report that he puts out on every Friday, and then he'll jump on here. So we may just have to talk a little bit before he gets on, and that's okay.
Yeah, he's got a lot of good stuff to say.
He does. I think that. Okay, so I'm going to introduce this a little bit before we jump into Off the Grid. He was at the U.S. With the Constitution Party, and he's a staple in the party. He ran as the presidential candidate last, I think in 16. Was it 16 he ran? 20. He ran in 20. And I just love this guy. He is a very, very distinguished gentleman, and he quite honestly, he well-educated, well-informed, very, very always excited to hear what he has to say. Well, anyhow, we were at the Constitution Party National Convention, and I'm going to tell you right now, I'm more interested in telling the truth than hiding the facts for anyone. I mean, that's just the way it is, right? Well, we had kind of a situation within the party, the Constitution Party, and it was very, very disappointing to see the behavior. But you could see the flaws in human behavior coming out in people that were willing to win at all costs. And it's symptomatic of the way that the spiritual condition of human beings, instead of trying to get along, there was kind of a coup going on there at the National Convention. And it was shameful behavior by several people. And I am going to call them out because though you have the right to do some things, they did the same thing that the government does with using the rules in order to gain an unfair advantage over the majority. And it was a coup. There's several people that have been calling it out. Our presidential candidate, Randall Terry, who I have a lot of respect for Randall. He's a real interesting guy. And he came right out and said what his strategy was. He said, I will not win the presidency, but he said, what I will do is raise awareness to issues and also for local races and such, so that we can win at the local level. But he came right out and said, I will not be in the White House. I am not going to win the seat of the president. But he said, what I will do is I will be able to take votes away from Biden if people are looking for another option. And I think that that's a worthy cause right there. And he said, if I had to vote for Biden or President Trump, he said, hands down, I'd vote for President Trump. So he's more about a strategy of putting someone in place that's not a Marxist and is willing to honestly lose, but move the bar. Does that make sense?
Yeah, he had several good strategies to win by losing, to use your term.
And it's like, I've said that many times, I won by losing, because there's so many advantages to losing a race. If you can move the bar, you shouldn't be interested in the title. You should be interested in the United States. Move the bar, and then that's what really needs to happen. So that's what he was all about. And I got to say, I really respect him. And there's my buddy. There's Darrell and Joan sitting there. So they're getting back in, and it's very nice to see them. So I'm going to give them a second to get themselves arranged here backstage. But anyhow, let's hear what you have to say about it, Ralph, because you were there, and it was kind of shockingly horrible.
Yeah, and there were in particular a couple of groups that were trying to take advantage of the rules in about probably two of the main committees, and then the one main meeting. And they were from two particular states, and I don't want to call out the states, because there are some good people in those states that stood up for what was right too. But there was a lot of division there, even among those states.
Well, and I got to tell you, I've got so much respect for Darrell Castle. I have so much respect for him, because he got right up and he called it out, and he called it out decisively. And he said, if these rules changes go through, every single state in here should get up and walk out. And he was right. Michigan had made up our minds that if it had gone through, because they were trying to subvert and take away votes from the different states. And he was right. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for him, because he believes, as we all should, in the process of representation. And they were trying to kill representation in order to win at all costs for their candidate that they were really trying to get in. And you could see it through the credentialing committee, the rules committee, as well as the platform committee, that this was all about their little show to overthrow the party for just a few of them and silence the rest of us. So anyhow, with that said, I'm going to welcome Darrell on right now. I'm going to put you guys backstage if you don't mind, and then we're going to move to the Castle report right now. Okay.
Go for it.
All right. Thanks. I'm going to bring Darrell on first. Hey, Darrell, how you doing?
Hey, Donna, I'm doing just fine. Thank you.
Good. Well, welcome this morning. I'm so glad to have you back. I just had Karen and Ralph on, and we were talking about a little bit on what happened at the National Convention. And like I've said to you, I have so much respect for you. You are such an amazing, well-informed individual who stands on the process, the American process. And I couldn't have been more proud of you that day at the meeting.
Well, I appreciate that, Donna. Even my wife doesn't say that many nice things about me, but I'm very grateful that you feel that way.
Yeah, well, anytime somebody stands for the process of America, it's a very proud thing. to stand for each other. And you were standing for the rights of all the states and the representation therein. And so I just want to thank you for that. So where are we going to go this morning? Now that you're back, I told everybody that you had some surgery on your eyes, and that's why you were gone. And I'm so glad to have you back again. And hopefully we'll be able to do the Castle Report every Friday to start it out at 9:00, because I love this.
Well, I appreciate that, Donna. Yeah, I am back. I'm supposed to have my final eye surgery next week, and hopefully, at least the doctors tell me that I should be fine after that. So I got that to look forward to. But yeah, I'm doing well now.
Oh, that's awesome. My mom had a detached retina years ago, and it's a long process for healing on that. So our prayers are with you. So what's going on in the world out there, Darrell?
Well, I just recorded my podcast for today, and it's about my favorite subject, which is war. And there's always no shortage of things to talk about, but essentially it's about how artificial intelligence is changing how wars are fought and will eventually change how we live as people. So I like to think it's forward thinking, but this technology is actually being used by both sides in the wars that are going on right now.
Can you describe how they're using it and what?
Well, it's this killer drone technology, where a person can walk into a store and buy a drone for $500, and if he has the knowledge, rewire it to carry a high-tech explosive to take out a $2 million tank. That's one way, but the other way, the system that the Israelis are using now, that they have a code name for, programs killer drones. They operate autonomously without any human contact. They form their own kill lists. They look for the people and they kill them, whether they're in a building with 40 civilians or whether they're in a tent somewhere. The drone finds them. It selects the kill list by itself without human interference, and goes looking for these targets. And the Israelis say they like that better because it takes away the emotions that soldiers often feel. There's no anger, no mercy, no pity, just simply machine technology. And in Ukraine, both sides are using these things. You can see videos of different countermeasures that the two sides are using to protect all that expensive hardware, which is a very low-tech system of protecting a very high-tech, very expensive piece of weaponry. So we can send them an Abrams tank, but that doesn't mean it can't be knocked out by some very cheap killer drone. And it's changing. It's going to change the way we live as people all over the world, because these things are being programmed with facial recognition software and linked into all the surveillance cameras worldwide, that one of them could look for any of us. It sounds like science fiction, and it is science, but unfortunately it's not fiction. Sounds like
the Terminator. Remember the Terminator movie?
Yeah.
The movies that were back in the 70s and 80s. And, it sure sounds like that. I saw a demonstration one time of a drone that was loaded with a slug, and it could recognize somebody's face and just fly in and shoot them right there. It's a little sobering,
Yeah, that's happening right now. And the Israelis tell us that, unfortunately, at this point, it does make mistakes about 10% of the time and selects a target that apparently it's just a regular person.
That's unfortunate. That's terrible. So what do you see the future of this? How do you see it going? Because here this is something that was interesting, and I haven't said this before online, but when I was up at Camp Grayling the other week, I was up there last week, and I was kind of perplexed at some of the things that I saw up at Camp Grayling. One of the people said, and I'm not sure, where I can go with this, but one of the guys said that they had just purchased, though it looked like a closed down kids camp up there. There was nothing above ground. So anything that's up there has got to be underground, because if there's anything there, it's underground, because there's nothing on up above ground. There was no troops. There was no vehicles. There was nothing at the airfield. Zero. I mean, it looked like it was abandoned, except for the DNR's involvement up there. The DNR was the only thing that had a presence up there. Figured out, it's state land, and was just odd. But one person said that somebody there had bought 300 drones, and they were still trying to figure out who owned them or who was actually in charge of them and such. So there's an awful lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that nobody's really admitting to. And it's way above all of our pay grade. That's all I can say. It's above our pay grade. We don't really know. And we don't even know what's really going on out there, because the fake stream media doesn't say what's going on. And unless you get a citizen journalist or somebody that can actually say, this is actually what I saw, this is what I didn't see, this is what I heard, and they're honest. And how many times are you going to find an honest person that's going to tell the truth? Now, there's just an awful lot up in the air right now.
Well, there sure is. What scares me about what could happen potentially in the future is, as I see the attitudes of people changing about politics, this attitude that Trump is so bad, anything we do to him is perfectly okay, because it's worth it to keep him from being reelected. He is so horrible that there's nothing we could do, whether it's inside, outside the law, whether it's, it's all justified because he's so horrible. On a lesser scale, it's kind of like what happened with us at the convention. This man that they were afraid was going to win is so bad, no matter how much we cheat, it's okay, because we have to prevent him from being nominated. So if you take that attitude and you couple it to artificial intelligence and killer drones, and it's only a slight stretch to say one of these things could be looking for political dissidents somewhere and eventually find them. And the machine has no conscience or no pity or no mercy, and apparently that's the way they want it.
Yeah, and they can deploy lots of different types of things that can accomplish an assassination. And look at all the assassinations that have happened recently across the globe. The president of Iran, because that has been ruled by many sources as an assassination, and as well as several other. There's a whole list of them out there, and I can honestly tell you that I am really a little concerned for President Trump.
Well, so am I, especially with that recent report that came out that said the officers who conducted the search at Mar-a-Lago had a authorized use of deadly force, and were apparently prepared to go into combat against the Secret Service if necessary. It's pretty frightening. It's more frightening than the average person can come to deal with, because it's not America. Something's happening. Something's changing in this country, and I can feel it. I can sense it. These two whistleblowers that were testifying in the case against Boeing for the defects in their new 737 MAX airliner. That's apparently killed a lot of people. At least they're being sued for that, and they're being investigated and so forth. So two Boeing employees came forward. You're probably familiar with the story. Months apart, and both of them, just before they were to give a deposition under oath, mysteriously committed suicide. Interesting. How does that happen? I mean, and one of the men still had his finger in the trigger guard of the weapon that he used to shoot himself with. The first one drove to the office of the lawyer who was supposed to conduct this deposition. They were all supposed to meet, as is common. I do it all the time here in my own office, so he pulls up outside the lawyer's office and says, "I don't think I'll go. I'm going to shoot myself." And then, then the second one came forward and the same thing happened. So it's a very dangerous occupation, that whistleblower.
Yeah, it truly is. And the amount of derangement that's out there is incredible. You know, it's like when, and you know what I really think it is? I think the base problem is people are so afraid that it's got to go their way, or it's a fear-based thing. Got to be in control, got to be afraid. And then, you know, instead of truly, I mean, if you believe in God and you serve God, it's like sometimes things don't go exactly the way you want it to go, but you trust that God has this figured out. And none of us are right all the time. And sometimes you got to say, well, maybe we'll get to the place we want to go by a little prayer and letting God steer things around, and it'd probably be better than the way that we do it. Would you like to talk about a little bit on what happened at the convention? Because I think this is worthy to talk about, because I believe that there's some action going on past that, of the same people that were trying to deprive us of our votes in other states.
Right. I am fairly up to speed on that, Donna, but what happened was, before the convention, word went around that Randall Terry was seeking our nomination, and I'd known Randall for 30 years. He lives here in my city now, and so we got together and we talked, and I decided to endorse him. And people on the other side, I mean, these people I've been friends with for decades. I've been to their house. They've been to my house. You know, we were close. It just never occurred to me that they would do something like that. But I was tipped off by a couple of people who were apparently in a meeting that I wasn't in, and these people were talking about what their plans were, and they were planning to do this thing to try to prevent a free and fair election. That's the bottom line. The will of the people would not decide it. And this person heard the expression, "Don't let Darrell find out about it." And he told me. So I was ready when the motion came. You were there, and you remember the motion to eliminate most of the votes. And then the person said, "Call for the question," which would end discussion before we had a chance to discuss it. But I just wasn't going to let that go. So once again, you have a situation where, in their minds, this candidate, being Mr. Terry, is so bad that there's nothing we can do that isn't justified. Same thing as the Democrat mentality, exactly the same against Donald Trump. This man's so dangerous, such a threat to democracy, that we're not going to have any democracy. You know, we're going to end democracy because he's such a threat to democracy. So this man that they didn't like, they had their own reasons for not liking him. But the point is, they were not willing to let the people legitimately decide who they want their nominee to be. So I just was not going to let that go by. It's a very dangerous precedent. I don't. If Randy had lost, you know, I'd been fine with that. That's what the people want. They want to vote that way. That's fine. But I'm not going to be cheated if I can do anything about it. Right. Cheated, lied to, or have what amounts to a stolen election. So yes, it is continuing now, because these folks are not only are they refusing to put Randy on their state ballot, which they have signed a statement saying they would do, by the way.
Oh, they did sign a statement that said they would do it.
Right. Well, everybody has to sign a statement saying that they'll put the nominee on their ballot. But so they decided they wouldn't do that. But that's not enough for them. They started calling around the country, trying to persuade other people not to put him on the ballot. And I've been called by several people and told that this is the case. And I've noticed a pattern to who they're calling. They're calling states and state leaders who they think voted for their preferred candidate. And they're asking those people not to put the actual candidate on the ballot, which is pretty poor. I'm very disappointed, flabbergasted, really, that these people would do that. I really am. I've known these people for so many years. They've been friends of mine. I just I don't get it. But
well, I'm gonna say some unpopular things right now, but I'm gonna say them anyhow. Their candidate was absolutely rigged to have favor in this entire process, from the fact that he was the keynote speaker, and their excuse was that, well, he was chosen, he decided to run after he got this keynote speaker's, he agreed to do that. You know what? Somebody with integrity would have stepped down from the keynote speaker or not run, because there's a little bit of a conflict there, because he had a whole hour and a half more than every other candidate there in order to talk and have the floor. And then it went into the fact that, one of the other candidates, and I confronted him, one of the other candidates decided to give him his time so that he would have more time. So you can sit there and see, okay, now there's a whole group of them working together to rig the system. And I went up to him and I said, you know what, just so you know, the two of you have lost all my respect, and I will never vote for you in any situation ever again. And I said, now you're a young guy. I'll give you that. You may not know why this is so wrong, but I'm going to explain this to you in clear and concise terms. I said, you literally are part of rigging the vote here by giving favor to one candidate. And I said, this is electioneering. I saw it in the Republican Party. You could see it all over the place. That's what people do who do not believe in the American process, or people having the right to have their vote or representation. And I said, and he started, and I chewed on him for a little while. I said, this is absolutely patently wrong. And I'm like, and you're involved in it now. And I said, I have no respect for either one of you at this moment in time. None. And I said, you're the only one that can write this. And to his credit, he went and he made it right and said, you know what, I'm going to take my time back. And every one of the candidates got like 20 minutes to present themselves. So for him, but I'm going to say this again. The person who is their new little candidate, their little star there, that's going to, save the republic, or whatever. And however you want to say this. First of all, when I was in the platform committee, it was his show. And he constantly said, I want to have a platform so when I run as, for the presidential candidate, that I have the platform I want to run on. And I never heard so many I's come out of a person's mouth in a committee in my entire life. And to the point where the guy that was running it did not understand Robert's rules. I kept putting my hand up like every time they made a change. Finally, it's like, what are you thinking, Donna? Because I'm like, I'm not going to let this thing go. And to coming up, and they had the chance to change the rules in the rules committee. They didn't do it there. But what they did do is say anybody who doesn't put the candidate on the ballot is going to lose half their votes in the next election. They kind of screwed themselves, if you really want to know the truth, because the vote did prevail. And one of the reasons is because you stood up and called them out for it. All it takes is one good man or one good woman to call out something wrong like that, and it will change things. And that's what you did. It was an epic moment. And so then on the day of the vote for the presidential candidate, they decided to change the rules, just the few of them, and say, we want a rule change that unless you're sitting here in the room, instead of a delegation that represents all the votes in the state, we want to change the rules so you have to be here to vote. And they did that specifically. They could have done it rules committee. They could have, but they ambushed everybody there. I have no respect for any of these people that were involved in it, because it was politically a low blow. There was no integrity to it, and it was win at all costs. And we don't care about the rest of you and what you think, because we know better than all of you. That's exactly what we've seen with Gretchen Whitmer and the tyranny with the Marxists that are in place all over. And I'm going to say it was a Marxist coup. It absolutely had all the makings of it. And so
your analysis is exactly right. I think I couldn't agree more. And that's why I say I was so shocked and disappointed by these people that I'd been in so many battles with and been friends with for so long. To see that side of them was pretty shocking. But you're exactly right in your analysis. That's what happened.
and then I also, you also hear the dynamic of people saying, I was there at the beginning of the party. I know best. I want that. And it's like, it's the same dynamic as the establishment in all the parties. It doesn't matter if somebody's been there for a long time. That's great. We revere people because they have the knowledge that goes before us that we didn't know, right? But when you pull that card out and use it as a coup to subvert the will of the party, basically it's keeping everybody else out so that they can protect their little power castle of losing. The party's lost consistently. And if you got people in that are willing to do something to actually win, they're willing to not do that. And I'm very disappointed in that. And I called it right out when my time to speak a little bit. And so did Randy. Randy called it out, and he got so much respect from me when he called out what he saw there with a coup that went on in the Constitution Party. And I was like, bravo. You had the guts not to just go along to get along, but actually say the truth. And so much respect for him, even on that point, for Randall Terry. And shame on those people. And I know there are people in the two states that are absolutely horrified by what happened there. And I'm going to say the states, it was Utah and Nevada. It was the people from Utah and Nevada. But there's some really good people there that were also horrified at the actions of a few. And
I watched some of those people that you're talking about, and they were being intimidated, trying to intimidate them, but they just wouldn't give in to it. My old friend Bryce Hamilton, they hit on him pretty hard, but he refused to stand and support their position, and I thanked him for that later. But yeah, you're right. Those are the two states, and my old friend from Utah is the one who's calling around all over the country trying to get other people to join in his deeds of darkness.
Yeah, and you know what? When a candidate, what I do know is this candidate also has rewritten a constitution, decided to take it upon himself to have a constitutional convention as a party of one. That's what's happening here. He wrote his own constitution as a party of one. Decided that's what he was trying to do with the Rules Committee, as a party of one, to try to change everything and then convince everybody to go along with it. He's rewritten a constitution as a party of one. And
if you notice in his speech, that hour and a half that he was given, he said that he knew more than anybody else. I mean,
sure did.
Openly said that, and he made it clear to the party when the leadership went to him and asked him if he would be a candidate, that he would only accept the nomination if we accepted his platform. Then, as I understand it, I wasn't in the platform hearings, but
I wish I would have taped it. I was.
When it became clear that his platform was not going to be accepted, he started backing away from that because he wanted the nomination apparently a lot more than he was willing to admit.
Well, and I'm going to tell you what I saw right off the bat is basically the entire removal of God from the platform. It should tell everybody who's operating behind all these people right now, because not only is this one of those things that we honor and we believe that this should be one nation under God and we're willing to stand, but there was a complete removal of God from the platform. And the justifications, you listen to the justifications, and this is the problem when people want to justify their deeds, which are lacking of integrity. They will justify it. They will come up with all sorts of things, why it should be that, why they're right. And look at where that's gotten us. It's like the justification to assassinate people because they're right. So they're going to just start assassinating people because they don't like them. Now, I can say is that there needs to be some consequences, and I would even say potentially if they go through the right prosecution, say for treason or crimes against humanity, there is an ultimate price to be paid for some of those crimes. That's a lawful way to do it. But when you subvert everything, which is what these people are doing, and it's going to be shame on any state that jumps on this because of they just want to go along to get along or are coerced or threatened or whatever it is. You can use any word for it. Shame on them. And any of them that refuse, I mean, they have the right to vote any way they want. I get it. But they don't have the background, honestly, of what happened leading up to this. The shameful behavior. And it was shameful.
So what do you think should happen to these two states?
I honestly think that because of the way that things were it's like if somebody uses the Constitution or the law or creating laws, because they were doing exactly what our government's doing right now. They're creating laws to benefit them and skew the favor into their camp so that they can win at all costs. It's the same thing we see across the government right now. I think there needs to be some repercussions to this because I don't know. I've heard removal from their ability to either there needs to be some repercussions. And I think we should have a discussion on that. I don't have all the answers to this either because I'd like to hear what you have to say and everybody else and approach it as a group on why this was so wrong. Because if somebody's going to do a coup or try to subvert the lawful and honest integrity of our election process, and it was planned out, you could see how this thing was planned out. They had it step by step before they even got there on how to hit the credentialing committee, the rules committee, the platform committee, and then ambush the entire party the morning of the vote to take the vote away, not even allowing discussion on this. I think there needs to be some repercussions for this. The same repercussions I would call on if somebody overthrew the United States government, because the parties are kind of a subset. Though I'm not a party person, actually. I think that the parties have become so corrupt, and I know most people within the Constitution Party believe the same way, that the party system is not. It's just exactly what President Washington said.
That's why most of us got into the Constitution Party to begin with, because we rejected the other two, and we thought that those of us who feel that way could come together and have something different, a different approach. But what should be done about it? That's an interesting question, and right now it's the question.
It is the question.
We do have an executive committee conference call scheduled for next Thursday to discuss that specific issue. So we'll see what happens there.
I would like to see some sort of consequences for what they did, because they literally came in there to tear the party down just to have their candidate. And that candidate, I'm going to say I like the guy. I talked to the guy personally, but I have no respect for him at this moment in time, because a person in that position could have stepped down and refused to take the extra time, refused to stand up as a keynote speaker in order to make sure that the process was correct. And that there was a fair and equal chance for any candidate. I really don't like the way any of the campaigns are going right now. I think anybody that wants to run for president should have a voice in it. I don't care if they're, I don't care who they are. I don't care if they're a dog catcher. I don't care if they're a CEO, a doctor, a nurse, a mechanic, a welder. I don't care. Everyone should be able to have that equal chance, not just somebody who has the money or the voice or, because they've got an audience or something. Our process is wrong. And it's not what the founding fathers had intended for this nation, that we could be bought and paid for, that we have cartels that are placing their candidates in order to have an advantage for themselves personally. The candidates that even take an advantage, except, and instead of doing it with the right way or with integrity, I think they should never be able to be allowed to run again.
Well, there has to be some repercussions, as you put it, some consequence to what they have done and what they're doing. I can't serve with them anymore under the current circumstances. I can't see my ever relating to those people again.
That's because you have integrity, and
Right.
that's why I love you so much, and you and Joan, because you two have integrity, and you would support. I wish you would. I wish you well in anything, but you need to run for office again, because you're someone that I would trust in all circumstances to do the right thing. The candidate that they are putting in, I can't say the same for them, because there were too many times that person failed personally to stand for what was a point of integrity.
Yeah, you're right. Plus, he's a bit narcissistic for my taste, but anytime someone says, I know something that no one else knows, unless it's something intimate about their wife or husband, something like that scares me. Also, the people who talk the most about democracy. This person's trying to destroy democracy, or that sort of thing. Those are the people who give less credence than anyone else to actual democracy. They're the ones who don't want to accept the will of the people when they vote, because the will of the people doesn't matter unless I get what I want. This country is changed and morphed into something that's getting scarier by the day.
It's unrecognizable from what the founding fathers said, and I think if we were actually, in the republic, which we should be, it would actually function, whether you have somebody that's a little bit this way or a little bit that way on issues, so that there's a play back and forth, and it kind of balances itself out. So one time you may lose, but it will always come back to a center if the people stand together. It eliminates the craziness. And as long as we go back to being able to fight for individual rights of each other, where we stand together instead of dividing up on sports teams that are just hell-bent on destroying this nation over I want, which is all I heard from this individual in the entire conference. And, it was like, how that should be one of the first things that should be called to attention to. Can this person actually work with a group, or does it have to be his way to do it, his platform, his thing? I mean, man, I'm telling you what, it's like this is like another incarnation of Biden and Whitmer and Newsom and all communists.
The people who put him forward as a candidate admire him so much that they're willing to accept all of that if they can have him. They just think, the elephant in the room we're not talking about here, but that's what's behind it all. What it really comes down to. Unfortunately, I hate to see it. I know what it means, but there's a religious element to all this that is so obvious, but we're all afraid to talk about it. But it's the truth, and you just can't get away from it. If you can run from it, as Joe Louis used to say, you can run, but you can't hide. It's right there, obvious for anybody that wants to see it.
Well, and I'm glad you're willing to talk about it, and I'm willing to talk about it too, because I think I told you, and I told Dan Cummings he was going to be on Wednesday, but I had to go tape a trial. So I was supposed to tape a trial, and then we didn't get in the courtroom. But he's going to be on I believe next week, and we were talking about just this whole subject and how we really, I don't know, we really have to come together and stand for what's right, no matter what anybody else does. It's so important. And we need to be able to talk about these things and not just go along to get along, but, quite honestly, stand for what's right before God.
Well, I agree with that. I sure do. We have to come together if we're going to be different. I mean, we all have enough problems in our own lives. The last thing we need is to buy new problems. So we should at least be able to agree within our own group that
Right.
The group can decide. They came very close. This group, they came within about an inch of destroying this entire thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because
they would rather have had it burned to the ground than to not have their candidate in. And that's exactly what they did. They were in, and you honestly, you were the one that called it out. You stood up and you said, if this gets through, every single person in here should walk out. Michigan had already made up our mind that we were like, this goes through. And when you stood up and you said it, we were like, there it is. And we would have gotten up and walked out, and it would have destroyed the party. Just a few people who decided that it had to be their way or the highway, and the highway was to destroy an entire political party in a matter of minutes. It was minutes. It wasn't a long discussion because they can't work together.
Yeah, that's I think is what's going to be my approach in that conference call next week, and that is you were obviously willing to destroy this party and to see it split apart. So, go in peace. Go form your own party. Good luck to you. Actually, I wouldn't say that because I don't wish them any good luck, but go your way. And sometimes you have to do that. When I've heard many times over my 45 years as a lawyer, this lady tells her story. Well, my husband came home drunk and beat me up. And then he told me it's all my fault. I provoked him, which is exactly what they're telling us. This is your fault because you nominated this candidate that is an extremist, or you wanted this candidate who's an extremist, so it's your fault. No, that's not the way it works. The people vote and the people have their way. That's the way it works in that process. And so I'm not willing to accept or go to the table and eat with people who are willing to lie, cheat, and steal.
There you go. You said it, because there just was no. I'm glad we had this discussion because when I was running for governor in the Taxpayers Party, U.S. Tax in Michigan, which is a Constitution Party in Michigan, we had some people that were doing the wrong thing. And quite honestly, I went to the heads of the, I was a candidate, but I wasn't an officer of the party, but I was a candidate. And I said something, and I said, there's somebody in here, there's a group of them that committed, one person in particular that committed a 14-year felony. And I'm like, I am literally shocked that this has not been addressed. And I said to them, you either get rid of the people that were involved in this, or so help me God, I will burn it to the ground single-handedly. This was a crime that was committed. It was a crime. And it's still waiting out there as a bad dream if somebody decides to poke their head up, because and I think that day is going to come, because you don't just go ahead and work as a group to be able to pick up somebody's notary seal to stamp papers and then register yourself as a governor candidate to subvert the one that ran. And that's why I got kicked off the second time. And it was my security guy that caught him doing it. And they almost came to blows over it because my security guy, who was also a professional profiler, sat there and watched what they did. And the pastor at the church turned the cameras off once it was brought to his attention, thereby also involved in it. And to hide the evidence of what was going on by a group of people that were willing to do whatever it took to subvert the vote. And thereby doing it, honestly, committed a 14-year felony. And so that one I like to drop out there once in a while. I will absolutely throw something out there to know, you start screwing with somebody enough, there's going to be somebody that's going to bite back, and that bite's going to be so hard you'll never get back up again when you start doing things that subvert the process and the will of the people. I know you're this way. I'm this way. I don't have to agree with people. I don't have to agree with them to talk with them or have a relationship with them, as long as they're following the law and the rules that we, the people, have agreed on. All the people is through a representational form of government. If we agree on it as a group of people, it's kind of more like a family that way instead of a dictator. Right now, all we have is dictators everywhere. They just got to control things, and they're willing to lie, cheat, steal, murder, and assassinate to be right and to win at all costs for money and power and fame. You know what? And I'm going to tell you right now, there's going to be a day that God's going to jump on. He's going to set his foot on this planet, and he's going to be like, all right, everybody out of the pool. We're done with this.
Yeah, you're right. But if there's any good news in this, Donna, it's that the ugly side of all this revealed itself. All these years, I've been friends with these people. Decades, we've worked together without me even knowing who and what I was dealing with. But now, 100%, I'm certain. And I'm just not going to let that pass.
Yeah, I'm grateful for that. I really am. I mean, it needs to be fought, and I appreciate everything that you've done. Historically, all of your service in the military, your service for this country, what you've done trying to, defend the ideals and the foundations that this nation has been, was created on the Constitution and the rule of law. And I just have so much respect for you and Joan. Joan is just a sweetie. I just love Joan. And, this is it's quite an honor. It's quite an honor even to know the both of you, and to stand alongside of you to fight for the United States. So is there anything else that you want to, I could sit here and talk to you all day. Is there anything else you want to talk about today? I know you're busy.
That's about it for me, Donna. I really appreciate you having me on, giving me a chance to voice my thoughts and so forth.
Well, I think this is how you do it. And quite honestly, we have to be right out about talking about this. And, this is how the system is supposed to work. When somebody steps out of line like that and launches a coup, because it was a coup, just like they've been launching a coup against President Trump, whether people agree or not. I don't really care if people like him. I don't care if you don't like his meme tweets. Boo-hoo, go cry. Somebody said that to me this weekend. They're like, I don't like this person because they call names. I'm like, boo-hoo, run for governor. You get called every name on the planet, and what are you going to do? Rent people brain space over them being stupid? You can't, you've got to, who cares? If they hit the target and they hit the goal, I can deal with personalities. It's just personalities, And so I don't know, but this is the way it works. And we're going to write this thing because I know that there's some really good people like you and other people behind in the party, like Justin McGill, who's the incoming new chair. I love Justin. I think he's a good man, and his wife Sherry is just a wonderful woman. And so it's nice to stand with people that actually have integrity.
Yeah, I agree with you. They're fine people. I was really looking forward to his leadership in the party. He's taking it over at a difficult time, but he's young enough to be able to handle it, I suppose.
Yeah. So, well, with that said, I'm going to let you go, sir, and we'll see you. We'll see you next week. And thank you so much for everything you do. Tell everybody how to get a hold of you or to sign up for the Castle Report. How do they find that?
Well, they can find that at castlereport.us.
Okay.
That's all you have to do. Just go to castlereport.us. And there's a way RSS feed. If you want to get it every week, it'll automatically be sent to you. But otherwise, you can just get it on castlereport.us.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, and we will see you next week. I'm going to go ahead and hit my little Brandenburg News Network thing as a break before we bring on everybody for Off the Grid preparedness and first aid. So we'll see you next week, Darrell. Thank you. And tell Joan I said hi. Much love, Joan. I know you're there in the background somewhere. So
thanks.
Bye-bye. Good morning. Welcome to the second hour of Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and I'm here with Dr. David, Karen, the Riveter, and Ralph, the IT guy. How you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing great.
I'm working.
Hi,
You're
Donna. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can't see you, but I can hear you, I guess. Once again, I'm the only one with hands, unless I put our little Karen up here. See, now Karen's got hands. There you go. So what's happening, everybody?
Well, I'm cleaning out our loft space. We have an upstairs in our house that's not heated or air conditioned, and so we use it a lot for storage. Tons of books up here, and we have an attic on either side. So in the morning time is a good time to do some look through and see what we can get rid of. What have I been storing that I don't need anymore?
Oh man, that's like a full-time job to think about that, isn't it? How is it that so much stuff accumulates that all of a sudden you look at it and you go, what do I have this for? This is nuts, right?
I'm pretty sure, though, that books are some form of a gas, really, because they seem to expand to fit their containers.
This is true. I am getting rid of some, though. I have a really old Animals of North America book, and I have a book called Elephant Have Right of Way. It's what they put on the signs in Africa, and someone made a children's book out of it, which is really cool. But I don't have kids, and I enjoyed it when I read it, but now it's time to give it to the library or something. So,
what did you guys
I'm
think
getting rid of
about?
stuff.
What did you guys think about what we were talking about? Because I know that we've all been involved in organizations and watched them melt down by people who want to win at all costs instead of doing it for the right reason. I know that, Ralph, you have a lot of knowledge on this. You were also there and saw what happened there. But I think it's worthy to talk about because this is symptomatic of so many different groups of people. It's that desire to be in control of everything, which is if you don't let God control you, you're going to become a controller, and you'll try to take control instead of being okay with things and trying to make things go the right way. What's your thoughts on this, Ralph?
Well, I think one of the really encouraging things about the National Convention, there were a lot of bad things that were attempted, but one of the really encouraging things is it really demonstrated the strength of a republic, because the attempted rule changes really would have taken the party from a representative republic to a democracy of the present, and that failed, and the strength of the republic really won out there, in that we were able to keep the party kind of on the rails, really, and now the mistakes can be corrected and rectified, and the attempts at quashing the voice of a lot of the states, that the attempts at that can be rectified now because the party was kept on the rails because of the republic organization of the party internally. And so there was bad there, but it was overpowered by the good. And there were a lot of good people, even, again, you can call out those two states, and there were a lot of people there that did the wrong thing. But there are some really good people that from those states that stood up against this too. So, and I applaud those people because they're definitely they're standing up for what's right against people that they have considered friends.
Mm-hmm.
And that does take some moral fortitude to be able to do that.
Yeah, you're still responsible for the choices you make, no matter what. You have to, if you see something wrong, and this is a real hard thing for people generally to step out of, is that they want to be liked, they want to be part of a group, and the way that the parties are structured in general, it becomes kind of the Republican Party and the Democrat Party are arranged in a way that's kind of cult-like, and most parties and most groups function that way, that so it shuts down people that have a diverse way of thinking rather than considering everything and going with the best answer. People are looking to make little fiefdoms for themselves and creating silos, and then either you get on my silo or my island, or you get voted off the island and ostracized.
Well, and this is too one of the things that gets lost more and more in modern society is the ability to listen to people you disagree with. Whether they've got just an absolutely absurd perspective from the way you look at it, you still need to listen to it, and you still need to consider that, because whether you agree with them or not, they have an opinion. And even, and I'm gonna say too that you have the people that just come into a group and try and talk over other people, and yes, listen to their opinion to a point, but they are themselves quashing other people's opinion, and they are just as bad. So you need to be able to listen to people, and that includes that needs to be mutual. They need to be able to listen to people. You need to be able to listen to people.
Right. Well, then what typically happens is that this is kind of curated. It's arranged, and what happens is they'll give you two choices. It's either this side or this side, and the problem is it may be neither side of what they're trying to sell. So, for example, like the issue on gay marriage, and they try to trap me on this all the time. They being both sides, okay. And on that, both sides of that argument will try to trap me on my opinions on things. My opinion on things and my answer always to them is, why is the government in marriage at all? This is all. And all of a sudden they'll look at me like, what? And I'm like, don't you realize that this whole thing of marriage is about the state owning your marriage and outcome, your children and your possessions, your property? That's all it's about when the state gets involved in it. That is it. And they're betting, and they're going to work to make sure that your marriage fails, and whether it's in family court, which is never on the side of getting people back together. They keep people fighting. They keep people coming back. They keep draining your resources away from the kids, trying to create more problems there. They don't solve anything, right? And so the problem is that why is the government in marriage at all? It shouldn't be. If you want to go get married, go get married. And and that takes it right out of the area of discussion.
Yeah.
Because
Why
it
do you
has
need a
nothing to do
marriage?
with marriage. It's all about property rights.
Why do you need a marriage license?
Right. Exactly. And it used to be, when I was younger, that you had to have a physical exam before they would allow you to get married. Mm-hmm.
I'd like to touch on something else you said about, we both were saying about what had happened at the party. The other day we talked about how many people are awake and aware, and how many would be willing to stand up if, let's say, FEMA, as we were discussing, would come to your door and attempt to confiscate things. And I had said, well, as long as people in the state of Michigan, for example, have guns, I don't see that happening. And I asked the question after the show, and I think I did a summary or mentioned it. And I said, how many would you be willing to stand up for your rights if this happened to you? And one person who is always doubtful, sorry, she always is. She has never had a positive thing to say or a hopeful thing to say. And her response was, I would, and then I would probably die, and not enough people will do it. And what you just did was prove to me that that's changing. And I hope you prove to her, because I feel like it's changing. And I think she, for whatever reason and whatever world perspective she has in life, doesn't see that hope. She doesn't see the change. And what you just demonstrated is that there are a number of people who are learning about their rights and how to stand up for them and willing to practice them. To go against the grain, to stand up and disagree, I do not consent. This is not how it's supposed to work. You are wrong. You should listen to what I have to say, and then hopefully you will agree. And if you don't, and enough of us disagree with your wrongdoing, we are going to do away with the source of the wrong here. And there are more people I see trying to do that, even if they're not successful. And I see that number growing, which to me is a really hopeful thing.
COVID really did change the dynamic because people got taken and lied to and their lives shut down. And it was kind of a good slap in the face to wake up, actually.
Well, and something else, too, that I saw at the convention that I thought was really interesting is that several people had kind of talked among the states to gather general opinion, kind of in an informal poll to see kind of the direction of where they thought things were going to be as far as the nomination vote. And after some of the shenanigans were pulled, that actually shifted dramatically in a completely different direction than several people anticipated, resulting in Randall Terry taking the nomination by a much wider margin than anyone really expected, which tells me that there were an awful lot of people from an awful lot of other states that were probably also pretty quiet about things, but they still actually took action when they saw the wrongdoing happen to try to correct it. And that was also, it's a subtle point of something that happened there. But when you start looking at sort of the discussions that were had before all of the shenanigans versus the final vote, it really says something about the integrity of a lot of the people that even were quiet.
Can I go back to something that you said, Ralph?
Absolutely.
About people that you want to have a conversation with the other side, or someone that disagrees with you or has a different opinion. For example, Trump, they don't like him. There's a whole psychology to get people to wake up and come onto your. The first no is confronting them. Trump is good. No, Trump is bad. He whatever they have in their mind, and they just dig in further. So by pushing against somebody in their beliefs, you just make their beliefs even stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Just confronting and arguing them. The way to do it with anybody, with anything, is when you have a disagreement, is to ask questions and to get them to think. It takes time. There's a lot of people still out there that have no idea what's going on. They still think, Trump is a bad guy. And in your mind, you have to be able to question them. Why is he a bad guy? What exactly is it? Does that have anything to do with what he's accomplished? Oh, he didn't accomplish anything. Well, then you could say, what about, the Middle East peace accords? Well, that was good. What about, people making more money, and you ask them these questions, and it gets them thinking. You plant the seed in their head. So if you go online, there's tons of psychology on how to get people to think a certain way, and obviously they're using that against us. They're doing the opposite. They're trying to make each side dig in to divide them further. But when you're one-on-one with somebody, ask questions. Don't tell them anything. Don't say Trump is great or Trump did this. They just dig in further when you push against their beliefs. So just question their beliefs and plant seeds.
Oh, and you're absolutely right there too. And there's another thing that goes along with that, and that's listen, but you don't necessarily have to agree with their position, but at least listen to them because they may have valid points. And even if they don't have valid points, you may be able to deduce something like out of some of the arguments as to like the arguments against President Trump. Where is that information coming from? How is that information getting to these people and connecting with them? And learn from the second level.
They're getting as much as we get positive, whatever beliefs through the social media sites and every people that we around us. The other side's getting the same damn thing. It's the opposite. So, the whole goal is to divide people. And
and it's hard. You turned into a robot for us, David. I can hardly hear you. You're breaking up.
I couldn't hear you.
I said you're breaking
up. I'm in a car.
Oh, yeah. Well, and to your point, you can say it again here. People have such a hard time with being with the W word. Wrong. Like I was wrong. And it's okay to say you're wrong because, when you get more information, you have to be okay with changing. And so you can listen for information, not responding, but then take some time to ponder, walk around the house a few times, and see if there's any merit to it, or is this person being lied to? Are they doing it intentionally, or are they being lied to? Are they bad sources? Is there one or two things you can even walk away from and say, wow, that was a really good idea that they had. You don't have to accept everything wholesale,
Right. And there's something cool that I've seen in the app Duolingo that I love. It's a small point, but I love this about the app. They have an award kind of thing in there, or an achievement for mistake mechanic, which is where you've made a mistake somewhere and then you go back and you fix it. And they actually celebrate that as an achievement for how many of these mistakes that that you've made that you've gone back and fixed, because it really is an honorable thing to be able to absorb new information and be able to correct your own opinion, to evaluate your own opinion and overpower your own ego.
Takes a lot of strength to do that.
You're able to do that. You're a strong person. You're able to do that. But so many people, can't let go of their beliefs, even when they're wrong. They'll literally go down with the ship, burn up in the burning house, just to keep their beliefs.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be something going forward when this whole thing falls apart on us, and it's going to. There's no two ways about it. When you look at the indicators, anybody that's really looking at the indicators is just kind of sitting here like this going, okay, it's going to go. We just don't know when it's going to go. But all the indications are that it could look worse than 29, honestly, the Great Depression. And I think we all need to be prepared for it, which is why we're here talking about, off the grid stuff to try to help our communities become prepared and have a decent grasp on doing what we can do now before we get into a crisis, not waiting until we get into a crisis.
Do you see a pathway, Donna, that there
What's
may
that?
not be a crisis? Do you see a pathway where there may not be a crisis?
Not really, because I know that there's a lot of people talking about the RV, the reevaluation and that sort of thing. But anytime there's change to the degree that I believe is possible, there's going to be some upheaval, and there's going to have to be a transition time. I don't know if you guys saw this, but I saw something the other day that a bank was giving out, I think it was 1969 $10 bills. And the point that was being made is, how are they giving out these $10 bills from 1969? Doesn't make sense, and they were brand new. The assumption was that they're digging back into what they have stored up, because a lot of the money's already gone. And and that we've got a real problem here, because if our currency, look at the currencies that are kind of collapsing across the world. I honestly think that Cuba was a test to see how people would react. So that it's just like with the toilet paper scenario we had here a few years ago. I think that was kind of a test to see how people would react and how crazy they would get. And I'm going to tell you what, they got crazy, crazy, real fast. And it was like that, me first, me first. When I listen to people talk about the RV, or, you know, the whatever it is that they talk about with the financials moving over, all I've heard was, you know, we need to be first in line, me. And you know what? I don't think that's a good attitude to have, because all it is going to do is create that pushing, that need and be first. And it's a lack of faith in God, quite honestly. He doesn't need the systems we have. He can provide without it. And if we get a little smarter and we're prepared ahead of time, we don't have to be worried about that, to push to the front of the line, to step on other people, to take care of me. You stand back, and I'm going to guarantee that if we stand back and we work with God, He's the one that's going to provide for us, and we will not have to worry about anything. It is a complete and utter, in your face, slap in the face to God Almighty, and it's an absolute proof positive of lack of faith and walking with God, in my opinion.
Yeah, and to the point, backing up a little bit too, about the listening to opinions, that I've said this before, but it's something to always keep in mind. It's more important to defend the free speech rights of the people that you disagree with than your own. And that's something that I absolutely hate about the whole concept of hate speech, because it's a matter of
my way or the highway.
Exactly. And you know, the people that say bad things about me, or that say they hate me, I want to know. I want to hear them, because I want to know who those people are. I want to know their reasoning. I want to listen to that.
And maybe they're right.
They may be right.
Yeah, they may be right. And it may be a great path to personal change and development. Going, wow, I didn't even know that, you know?
They may be wrong, but one way or another, I want to know who they are. And their ability to say bad things about me needs to be protected.
I agree.
I'm going to go back to the drum major speech, Martin Luther King Jr. If you haven't read it or heard it, I'm sure you can find it on a YouTube search called the Drum Major speech. And in it, he talks about how everybody naturally wants to be first, but you should be first in service toward others.
Yes.
And so on. And so he lists all the things that you should be first in, instead of wanting to be first on top of things, like I call it the ego mind versus the heart mind. If the people in a political party or an assembly, which is where I got that phrase from, or any other group of people, could be a family. If you're operating with your heart first, you're going to take care of people. Bill and I were talking about that the other day, how if you have kindness and compassion and love, even if you disagree with somebody, you will measure your words and your tone and consider the emotional effect it could have on someone else, because you care about them. So even if they are, in your mind, wrong about a matter, you will express yourself in a way that helps them rather than hurts them.
I always heard this saying is that nobody ever wins an argument. You just create an enemy. So, but civil discourse is a separate thing. That's where you share ideas, but you don't force them on somebody else. You don't force human beings. Human beings will never ever. They're like horses. You force them, they're going to hate you forever. Number one, and number two, that's a very dangerous situation because they're just looking for a reason to come back and get you on the backside. That's human nature, and we're not going to change it. The only person that can change that is God Almighty. So I want to show you something kind of cool. So I've got a video. This is lard in a jar. And you want to switch, or you guys have anything else to say? I should ask you that first. Or do we want to go off the grid here and talk about preparedness for a few minutes?
I had one other comment on Mr. Castle's what he was talking about the military stuff that's going on right now. And he talked about how the whole drone warfare thing has really changed things, and that's kind of a scary prospect. But I want people to kind of think about this too, that that means that very inexpensive and easily buildable things are able to overpower military equipment from the military industrial complex that costs millions or billions of dollars. It's being taken out by inexpensive and widely available things.
It's like the guys in Revolutionary War. They were like hunting with squirrel guns behind the trees.
Yep. And the whole AI thing, that, there's an awful lot of people that know how AI works and can implement that themselves. This is not something that is only that needs to be only by a specialized few people. Anyone could build a drone that goes and takes out other weaponized drones. This is not something that is an elite group of people are the only ones that can build this stuff, like you have with, a lot of the major military weaponry out there. And to a certain extent, I actually kind of think that could potentially be a very good thing for the shift of power. Because if you look at the way that our Constitution is written, we, the people, are supposed to be the ones that are managing all of the military might of the United States. We are supposed to be defending against threats, both foreign and domestic. And this actually kind of does, in a way, shift that so that, the power of government is derived from the consent of the governed. And in all of these countries that this kind of stuff is happening in, you're actually starting to see kind of a shift like that back to the way that military power was implemented in the United States originally.
And I think what they're really afraid of, because there's an awful lot of propaganda out on both sides for AI, be afraid of AI, be afraid of AI. As soon as you see that emotion coming out in any way, shape, or form, they got you, because somebody is creating that content. They're afraid of AI that's not moderated because it's going to tell the truth.
Absolutely.
And so if we have models that are unmoderated, not just like Claude or Chat GPT or OpenInk and those sort of things, which are curated and wholly owned right now by the globalists, they're still rigging the answers in that. And it's interesting because I've gotten to play around with it a little bit just to see how it works. But you got to have some knowledge in there, because it does hallucinate. It tells you things that are not true, and you'll go, that's not right. And so you have to know something about the subject and or check out what it does say, because it will lead you astray, and it's intentional. Jeff Bezos owns one of them, and Microsoft owns the other one of the big two. And so I've heard it said that, well, you got to have these advanced models because they do upgrades. Now the upgrades are already there. If it's not moderated, you're going to see those upgrades regardless, because the AI will pick it up. So it's kind of an interesting, but it needs to be an unmoderated, decentralized, just like everything else. And I got to tell you, I'm working on several things right now, which are with a group of people that are going to, first off, one project, it will change communications. It's a fundamental change. And it's something that when you see a problem, like they're going to take the communication grid down, what do? You figure out how to do it without them. And there's ways of doing that. We have, right now, we've got 3 projects going on that are going to be very shocking to people and how exactly to, and say, I don't need a title as governor to do it. Neither does anybody else. We can just say, screw all of you who are doing the wrong thing. We're going to do it with or without you, and we will figure it out. And guess what? All those tools you have are going to be used against you. And we have the ability to do that. But we have 3 projects going on right now, which are going to be kind of shocking to people. And it's not, you don't have to sit here and be afraid of it. You run right to the fire and you address the problem and figure it out and say, no, not going to do this. Whether you run in towards the law and figure the law out, or how to prepare for things if they go down, or whether you figure out how to get around the communication snafu and or the drone snafu or whatever else is going on. We can do that. We have the ability to do this. They don't have like godlike supremacy. They only do that if we agree to their terms and conditions, and we do not have to agree to that. One honest governor would have righted the entire United States of America, because the governor has the ability to remove every single person from the government except the legislature. And in the state of Michigan, they committed treason. So that's automatic removal. That is a reset right there.
Donna, come to think of it, the fact that you did not win has so many benefits, because if you had done all that, the people of Michigan would have lost their minds. But give it another few months, maybe a year. I think it's just a matter of time before you do get in office. And when you do, I think that they'll be like, oh, great. Oh, she's gonna save us now. She's our Michigan Trump. Let her do her thing, and we'll watch and applaud.
Start the watch. Start the stopwatch, because it's gonna go fast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'll even put this little watch out here. There you go. There's my Ingersoll Trump pocket watch. Isn't that cool?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so think about this though. It's really bringing, all of this stuff is really bringing the capabilities. People are waking up to not trusting that things will be taken care of for them. They're taking they're starting to take things into their own hands.
Bingo.
And you look at a lot of these countries where there's, the drone warfare and that sort of thing, and how it's changing everything. There's an awful lot of opportunity there for a lot of these countries that have been controlled by globalists for decades, and or controlled by our CIA for decades. And some of these countries are finally starting to wake up, and the populace is actually starting to fight back against this and push back against it, both within their own governments as well as in some of these other ways.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of, in my mind, it's, it definitely changes things. You can't rely on old military doctrine because it's not going to work anymore. But on the other hand, it's really kind of a reversion to old military doctrine. It's not relying on the centralization of all of the power into just a few types of military formations, military equipment, that sort of thing. It's really having to go back and reconsider, the way that, even looking at Afghanistan, there's a lot of parallels with that. There's a lot of parallels with the way that Afghanistan was fought with the way that the Revolutionary War was fought. Not in the moral character of the different sides that were fighting. I'm not referring to that. I'm referring to the way that for lack of a better word, guerrilla warfare really is kind of the way that the Revolutionary War was fought here in America. And so a lot of this stuff, a lot of these military doctrine changes are really kind of reverting to an older form of military doctrine, from the way I'm seeing it as an outsider.
Yeah. It sure is an interesting time to be alive. That's no two ways about it. So let's go ahead and do just a little bit off the grid here. And I got to meet a mulch guy today. So here's a quart of lard. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and do some videos and show you guys how to do some canning. But Karen posted this one, and I'm going to put this one up. It's a gal doing exactly what we talked about yesterday, which is speeding up. I thought this was kind of cool because, I talked about doing it and speeding it up. And so I watched a little bit of it this morning, but I'm going to show you what she's doing, and I'll tell you what I would do differently and why. She's doing a weighted canner, and there's some... For people who have not canned before, I'd say don't do it this way. Okay. I've done it. I've done weighted canners. I've done water bath canners, and I've got the digital canners. Get yourself a digital can if you're going to do it, because it's kind of like fail safe. Okay. You don't have to know a lot. You don't have to watch it constantly. And so it kind of frees you up, but let's watch this. And then I'm going to stop it and I'll tell you the steps and why she's doing this. And then I want to do some videos so I can show you what I would do in cooking and such. And I'll just speed it up like she's doing it, which we talked about yesterday doing it. And I was glad you found this video, Karen. It's cool. So let's watch it a minute.
One of the biggest lies we've believed from the food industry is that animal fat is not good for us. We've been told time and time again to use other substitutes. This is tallow, which is...
Tallow is beef fat, where lard is from a pig.
Isn't it spelled Tallow?
What's that?
Tallow. Tallow.
Yeah, I think this is like an AI transcription kind of a thing.
Well, just so anybody wanting to look it up.
Okay, here we go. So it's rich in vitamin A, D, E, K, and B1. Vitamin K is very significant. So it's one that we don't hear about much, but it is a very significant. And K2 is almost more significant because it puts vitamin K1 is a clotting agent. That's why kids get a vitamin K shot after they're born in the hospital. If you wait after 8 days, it's not a problem because your body starts producing it. But K2, it helps deliver calcium into your bones. So if you've got a problem with osteoporosis or something like that, you take some K2 coupled up with a couple other vitamins. I can get into that later, and it will deposit the calcium back into your bones and help with the remineralization of it.
A, D, E, K, and B1. It's easy to absorb. We're going to preheat our oven to 225. This is low and slow. Essentially, you are melting, rendering down this suet, which is beef fat. You can get this at a local butcher. There are even reputable organic websites that you can purchase it online, but tallow has so many health benefits. It is rich in healthy fats. It's high in omega-3. It promotes fat burning. That's about the size you want to cut it to. It doesn't have to be perfect, but smaller chunks to be able to render down easily. Typically, you're going to do about 2 pounds for 5 to 6 hours. I probably have about 20, not 20 pounds, but there was a lot. So this was my first time. You're going to want to make sure you put...
She's a first-time canner, so keep that in mind. That every time you watch somebody, you want to know, a little bit. Well, how long have they been doing this? Are they experimenting on camera because they think it's a good idea, or do they have a long history?
The lid on the pan in the oven at 225. This took about 10 hours and it was not complete. So here you are going to see it is not completely rendered down, but this was midnight and I was done. So I did have a little bit more of a task ahead of me because I had to separate the suet that did not render down into another container, and also used another strainer to try to save as much of the liquid, which is your tallow. You could essentially render down the rest of that suet. Like I said, I was done. It was late. So tallow you can use in the place of butter or vegetable oils. It is actually allergy free. It does not have histamines, dairy, or casein. It has a high smoke point of 400 degrees. It also reduces constipation and even promotes positive mental health. You can use this for skincare, cosmetics. It is amazing. You need this in your life.
Okay, so, and I want to go back to another one that Karen posted. I'll put it on my channel too. So I think this is a really wonderful thing. And then this is the next one we're going to do is on canning, but she does things differently than the way that I would do it, because like I said, we're going to go back to a digital canner, which I think is, for beginners, it's a good way to do it, because you're not having to deal with the weights and the pressure and the timing, because you got to watch it full time. If it goes below the 15 pounds of pressure on it, then you're going to have to start it all, your timer all over again. A digital canner eliminates the failure point there. Now she's cutting her meat up into really small pieces. When I do it, I do not cut my meat up in real small pieces. I'll usually do full pieces of chicken. I don't cut my chicken up. And for beef or pork, I'll cut it up into maybe 2 to 3 inch cubes. I believe she's a new canner too, just watching how she's doing things. So now watch what she's doing here. She's using vinegar to take the residue off. Now, when you're doing when you're doing canning and you're taking the residue off the top of the canner, I'm going to correct her with this one because she is a new canner. She's taking her thing and she's just going like this. She's just smearing it around. You take it and you roll whatever you're using so that you have a clean side as you go around your jar, so that you're not smearing the oils or anything that you've gotten spilled on the lid as you go. And that's very important. Use a clean surface. Turn your fingers so that you're like this as you're going around it, as you're wiping it off, so that you always have a clean surface.
She also seems to be skipping the boiling the rims or the boiling the lids step.
Yes, I always boil my lids so that they're it softens the rubber just a little bit, and I leave it in the hot water and pull them out as I'm putting them on the jar. And then I take this is a rim here that comes off. It's sealed with or without the rim. Doesn't matter if you have that on or not. But I just leave it on because it keeps my rims with my jars. But when you tighten it, you finger tighten it. You're not shoving that thing down, because what you want is just take your fingers and finger tighten this down about like that. And that's really all you have to tighten it down. Any more than that, and you won't have the air escape to create the vacuum to set that lid squarely on that jar so that it won't unseat itself. So she's putting the cold meat in the jars. Now she's sitting this into her canner and turning the temperature on high to vent. Now this is the stovetop method. I've done this before. And after 10 minutes, she's going to put the weight on. That's the venting process. She'll put the weight on it and bring the bring it up to 15 pounds of pressure and turn it down. And now she has to keep it there for 90 minutes and be at 15 pounds consistently, or just a tiny bit above it, for 90 minutes. And if you drop down under the 90 minutes, you got to start over again. She is correct with that. So you've got to be watchful. You can't really walk away from this. You don't want to. If it spikes, there's been a lot of people that have gotten hurt over the years with pressure canners that are the weighted stovetop method. You don't have that with a digital pressure canner because they've built in all sorts of methods that are safety measures there. This completely relies on the person who's doing it and their skill and understanding the process. So it's not that I'm against it. I've done it. I have no problems doing it. But as new canners, it's a little more complicated. I'd say stick with the digital. So now you have to wait till it cools down and the pressure is at 0 a little bit to remove the jars. And there you go. There's the canned chicken. And that is correct. So you can can raw meat. You can can it with the bones still in it. In fact, I'm going to help Karen this year. So when she's done executing her chickens, we're gonna work on doing some canning so that I can teach her the process.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun and very educational, and then I can decide if that's something I really want to invest in doing again and get my own. And I think that the digital canner would probably be the best because I'm one of those people that I get this idea of like the Jack in the Box. And I'm thinking I'd just be terrified of the thing exploding on me somehow. And so I'm like, yeah, I like the idea of having those extra safety measures.
Oh, that reminds me, yesterday when we were talking about mulberry bushes, that's kind of what I kept thinking of as the Pop Goes the Weasel song.
Oh, yeah. Well, there are a lot of women. It used to be that there were a lot of women that were hurt or injured in the pressure cooking canning process because they had a different kind of canner that they put the lid on, and then they would have like something that would strap over the top of it. The new canners have a flange, and you put the top on and you twist it so that it kind of seals to itself a little bit. But you've got to make sure all your the rubber seals are correct. There's a pressure valve in it that has a rubber pressure valve that you've got to make sure that all the rubber is in good order when you're using a stovetop weighted pressure canner. Now, on the digital ones, they have here, I'm going to just pull it up here a minute and I'll show you a really good one to buy. This might be helpful to people. And they're like, well, what do you buy, Donna? Well, let me show you. And I've done a decent amount of canning with this. Presto has a good one. This is the only one I'll vouch for because this is the only one that I have in fact used. Hang on and I'll show you the process here a minute from finding one to looking and actually getting, hang on a minute. Here's the canner right here. You've got a variety of prices between $329, $369. Usually you can get it under $200. And I would say, quite honestly, the Amazon one is the easiest one. And sometimes you'll get it on sale too. So just keep your eyes on it and they'll have like a discount. So here's a pressure canner for 23, let's see, a 23% reduction in price. So let's look at it here. So this is what it looks like. I'm going to see if they'll show you how to put it together here. You can get 5 quarts in or 12 pints in it for pressure canning, but you can also do water bath canning in it. So it's kind of a dual purpose machine. Works very, very well. You set the timer. There's a quick cheat sheet with it. You just set the timer. There's an inner pot here that you can take out and wash and just use a little bit of vinegar and water and in that, and that'll take any mineralization from the water out of it. Works really well. Let's see what they have for the video here.
The Presto Precise Digital Pressure Canner is the first electric canner to meet USDA guidelines for safely processing meats, poultry, fish, vegetables, and other low-acid foods. Plus, it doubles as a boiling water canner for preserving fruits, jams, jellies, pickles, and salsa.
What he said with low acid. So high acids would be your tomatoes, and high sugar content would be your fruit. So anything that has a high sugar content or a high acid content, you don't have to pressure can. You don't have to pressure can jams and jellies. You can water bath that. It's 20 minutes and you're done. If you pressure can, it's about a 4-hour cycle, but you don't have to sit there and watch it the whole time. You just have to make sure you advance it by pushing go during the different stages and put the regulator on top. When it tells you to hit go, you're done until this thing is cooled off.
The automated digital process makes home canning easy. Proper processing temperatures are maintained automatically with no need to watch or adjust settings. Throughout the canning process, the innovative sensor automatically detects and holds the precise temperature required for confident pressure canning with no adjustments needed for high altitudes. For boiling water canning, the sensor detects the boiling point, activates the canning process, and automatically maintains the proper boil. The easy-to-use digital interface guides you through each step in the canning method from start to finish. The canner preheats the jars and keeps them warm until each jar is filled and ready to process. For pressure canning, the required venting...
Did you see she's got a jar lifter that she's pulling the jars out? You really have to have one of those if you're canning, because it'll grip that jar taking it out. And you're talking about very, very hot contents of a jar. Very hot. So you want to, I remember doing it when I was a kid with a towel. Not the best plan. Okay.
Yeah.
Put your grip on it. You're going to get hurt very badly because you could crack or break the jar. You could spill the hot water on you. This is scalding contents. So make sure you buy a jar lifter.
Is even programmed to remove air from both the canner and jars. And during processing, heat is held inside the canner, keeping your kitchen cooler. Experience simple, automated home canning with the Presto Precise Digital Pressure Canner.
That one looks kind of like a cruise control version of a canner.
It is. It absolutely.
I like it.
Yeah, for
Just from what I've read.
$255. And then get your jars. You cannot reuse the lids. People will say you can reuse them. You cannot. Once you use it one time, throw them out, because if you're better off buying a bunch of lids and saving them ahead of time and something, but you don't reuse your lids. Now I've seen that there are some new silicone ones out there, and I've watched the process with it, but it's kind of hit or miss with those yet. I think that perhaps that's one thing that we are going to have to fix, is we have reusable lids at some point in time. I'd love to see them work really well, but what I've seen is that there's about a 20% failure rate on reusable lids, and that's not reusing like the ball lids. That's a specific reusable lid that you just wash and reuse every single time. I don't think it's a good idea. Use the tried and true methods, and we'll see if somebody comes up with an innovation that actually works. But right now, I don't have a lot of faith in the things that I'm seeing. So you don't want to screw around with this, because if you get botulism in your food and you do it wrong, you're going to get sick, and you're going to get real sick from it. So there's my a little bit of a cautionary tale here. So here's your jar lifter right here. This is not a bad little setup here. And the reason why you would use that is, I'll tell you what each of these things is for. This is to poke down. It removes air in your jar. So you just insert that in your jars after you've product in, and it kind of like gives the air a channel out around the food product that you have. This is for tightening jars and or taking off the jar lids themselves. You have this. I use that when I boil the lids, to grab the lids out of it to set the lid on the jar. I do keep the lids warm, or fairly warm, just to make sure that rubber's a little soft. So when I seat that lid and put the ring on, it seats the lid in a kind of makes its own ridge in it.
From what
Here's
I've heard, you want to have the jars and the lids at a warm temperature when you pack and then put them in, right?
I don't with the jars because I don't. I do run it through like a sterilization cycle in my dishwasher, and I don't put them in with other dishes that have food on it. I use clean jars that go in the dishwasher, and then I will set it on a very, to make sure it's sterilized. Then I take the jars out, I flip them upside down, and I fill them. But they don't have to necessarily be warm. You're already sterilized when you do it that way. And then there's a cycle in that Presto canner that sterilizes and warms the jars up for you. So you can do it right in the pressure cooker itself, and it'll tell you, clean your jars, load your jars in there with about, I think it's a half of it being with water inside of it. It tells you just exactly how to do that. And there's a line of water that you fill it up, and then when you're done, you empty the jars out. If you use a pressure canner, I don't. I use the dishwasher method. Pull it out, fill the jars, wipe the rims, put the lids on, and finger tighten, not gorilla tighten, finger tighten the lids on. So this is your jar lifter right there. And then that nice little funnel right there so that you can put product in without smucking up your jar all over the place. So that's what you do. Oh, they've even got nice little pictures here to show you how these are used. So there's your jar lifter. Here's your little funnel to keep from screwing up having to wipe it forever. There's the ability to remove the air bubbles. You got a little bit of a tightener and such, and magnetic, your magnet tool if you want to pick up the jar lids. I just use the tongs, and there you go. So there you go. Some things to think about, and absolutely an interesting way to do things. Easy, anybody could do it.
So I had another idea for something else I thought we ought to talk about when we're done with canning.
Okay, we've got a few minutes here because I got to go meet a malt guy.
Okay. Well, we've kind of touched on this before, but another preparedness thing that I think would be a real good idea for everybody to have on hand is fluids for your car. Figure out what kind of oil your car takes. Get a set of it. Get a jug of that for your car so that if you need to do an oil change in a situation where you have a supply chain breakdown on oil, that you can do an oil change. Get some coolant. Get antifreeze for your car, the type that's compatible with your car, because with modern cars, not all of it's the same. So get some compatible coolant. Get some wiper fluid. Go and get a gas tank and, a little 5-gallon jug, and you can use that then if your car runs out of gas or something like that. Well, perfect. You've got some fuel. And if you get, most cars are compatible with rec fuel, which is just pure gasoline. And in a lot of cases, that regular pump gas usually has a shelf life of about 3 months. So that's not something that you're going to want to keep on hand for long. But if you get rec fuel can stay viable for like 4 to 5 years, depending on the car. And so, have some fluids on hand for your car so you can keep your car operational.
Yeah, and if you have bad tires, you might want to get an extra set of tires and have them sitting around until, in case you need to replace tires. That's another thing.
You really want to go nuts, get some brake pads.
There you go. So canola, let's see. Lev and Charlotte are talking here. Lev says all vegetable oils are not good except for olive oil. Pure olive oil is very hard to find. Avocado oil is another one, and that's got a very high flash point to it. Let's see. Charlotte said, man, I'd like to fry that. The meat right now, the canned meat, have been craving a fatty steak. Charlotte says, I use walnut oil to cook with or lard. Love canning. My digital one is out of use. They don't last that long. When you use it all the time, you have to replace it. Old ones Still good, but need some rings for the lids and water bath. Water bath works, so you can improvise on some of it, but you can't water bath vegetables. In pickles you can, but that's a high acid because you're using vinegar. Also, Charlotte said mine was broken. You can also use a crock pot. I would guess. I'd have to think about that one through because I've never done it.
Maybe
And
for water bath.
For water bath.
Yeah, not for pressure.
Not for pressure. And you have to dry the rims. Now remember, the lid is separate from the rims. Here's the rim right there, and there's the lid. You want to make sure your rims are dry because they do kind of rust. If they can rust if you don't get them dry.
I have a question. So she had tallow and you had lard.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a difference between the two terms?
Yes, tallow is beef, lard is pig.
Okay.
So, so you've got lard's a hog fat and tallow is a beef fat.
Okay.
Pork and beef. Mm-hmm. And it basically has about an indefinite shelf life. So the term rendering is where you separate the actual fat from the tissue that it's encased in. And so you melt it out and it becomes liquid, and then you're left with, sometimes people call them crackling or whatever, which is the connective tissue that holds the fat in place. And so you're rendering the fat out, you're removing it, separating it out so that you can use it just as fat and you don't have the little bits of connective tissue and such that are in there.
No, I told you I was reading The Little House on the Prairie, the first of the series of books that Laura Ingalls Wilder wrote. And she describes the butchering of a hog and how they did everything with it. And then she describes how Ma made cheese. They had to kill a young calf in order to get the lining of the stomach. And they had two calves, but they were both female, and the females can be raised up and become milkers later on, so they have a different value. But I think it was Uncle George that had a male calf. So Pa went over to his house and he agreed, and they butchered that young calf, and they used parts of the stomach for like 3 different women to make their cheese with. And they talk about the whole process. It's like a manual. It's not easy for me to understand how they do all the parts of it, the process, because it's something unfamiliar and they don't show everything. There's no pictures that show exactly how they do it all, but there you go.
And not only that, so there's other ways. The lining, what you're looking for, it's called rennet cheese. But there are other ways of getting rennet other than taking it from the stomach lining of a cow. You can do it with nettles. There's about 4 different plants that you can create rennet, a rennet out of a vegan-based or a vegetarian-based rennet. So that's they used what was available, but that doesn't mean that's the only way. So stinging nettles is one of them. That stuff's like, that crap's everywhere, right? So you can make tea, and it's really, really high in nutrition value. You just gotta make sure that you're not going to get stung by it, because there's a reason why it's called stinging nettles. But you can use that plant, and nettle tea is good for a variety of things, including allergies. It works really good against allergies, high nutrition value, and you can make a rennet for making cheese out of it.
And native all over the place in North America.
It's everywhere. So
I ran into that with botany class, and I learned real quick.
We showed everybody what stinging nettle
It was tall. It was tall, and we all had to walk through a field of it. It was horrible.
I'm gonna go ahead and post that canner to my Telegram channel, which is at Brandenburg, BRANDENBURG 4 MI.
And I wanted to bring up too, I don't remember now who you said commented on this, but they mentioned how hard it is to find pure olive oil. And kind of going back to the discussion that we had about my allergies and how I kind of see it as a superpower for being able to detect contamination in things because I'm allergic to so many things. The one that I've found that seems to be one of the purest ones that I've never reacted to the olive oil from this company is Delalo. And so if you're looking for one that seems to be pure, that one, they change once in a while, but I've never had problems with that one.
There you go. There's stinging nettle right there. And it is everywhere. You're not gonna you look at the serration on the leaves, how they're positioned across from each other. They're the leaves are opposing rather than staggered. And that's what it looks like, guys. There's the flower. And lots of benefits. And that's what it looks like if you come in contact with it. So helps detoxify the body, rich in anti-inflammatory properties, gives relief from respiratory issues, speeds up wound healing, may help lower blood pressure. But there's more benefits to stinging nettle, but those are the ones that floated to the top.
As I understand it too, they don't really get the stinging part to them until they're bigger.
Yeah.
And so from what I've seen, if you can harvest a bunch of that when they are just kind of a few inches tall, just sprouting out of the ground before they've had a chance to grow much, supposedly they make really good salads. I haven't tried that, but that's what I've heard.
Well, there you go. Well, boys and girls, let's call an end to it today because I got to meet a mulch guy here, okay? So, dear Heavenly Father, thank you so very, very much for Darrell and David and Ralph and Karen. And we're just so thankful that we can come and talk every day about things that are important to us and to hopefully everybody else out there. We're interested in talking to subjects that everyone is interested in talking to and learning from each other. It's such a wonderful process that you put us together as brothers and sisters on this wonderful, wonderful earth that you've made. It's beautiful here, and we're thankful for all the gifts that have come from your hand that we can explore. It's kind of being an adventure park. We ask that you would help lead us to be more like you so that we don't mess it up, because we're the weakest link here, and we realize it. Sin came in when sin came into human beings. We kind of compromised the paradise that you had created for us to live in. And we're very thankful for that. And we ask that you would restore everything. We're willing to do whatever it is that you ask us to do or not to do, to lay down our lives before you and to serve each other and serve this beautiful world that you've made, not to take advantage of it, not to profit off of it, but just to enjoy it, our time here. And you know what? It's good enough just being your child. That's our ultimate goal, our focus of life is we just want to be your child and play on the earth and explore things and do things and serve each other. And honestly, to try to look at other people and accept people the way that you do with your eyes. We want to be able to have the discernment that is your discernment, so that we can make decisions about things, whether things are really good or really bad or somewhere in the middle in the gray area. So just help us keep our eyes on you today. We want to honor you with everything we do, with our thoughts, our mind, our deeds, and whatever it is that you ask us to do this day, we're willing. We're willing to be one nation, one people under you in all things, and live together in this paradise that you created for us. Apart from sin, we want to walk away from things that are sinful because they only lead to destruction. We want to be more like you, and we thank you for everything you've done for us. You've been a wonderful friend to us, and we want to be a friend to you and your children, and walking in your guidance as you guide us, as you lead us through this life. We really, really want a relationship with you. In the name of Jesus Christ, our precious Savior, we pray. Amen. So there we go, boys and girls. So that's that part of the show. Go to brandenburgforgovernor.com because I'm the best non-conceder who has ever not conceded to any liars, cheats, or thieves out there, or a rigged election. And we're going to continue to fight all this because you know what? We have to. There's another way out, no other way out. If I've heard people say, I'm sick of it, I'm ready to quit. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You think they're going to quit? You think the bad side's going to quit? They're not going to quit. They're going to continue to keep coming back at us until they wear us down. Well, guess what? All the bad guys out there, they're going to wear us down. We've got the stubbornness that comes with walking with God, an unwavering commitment to doing the right thing and seeing that God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That's not going away. That is absolutely not. In fact, it's getting stronger every day. And you can be sure that more and more people are standing up to do the right thing with all of us. The amount of people, the army of people that are standing in God's army is getting more and more and more strengthened, convicted, and not going to back down. So we invite everybody out there to stand with us and to know that we're willing to see this thing to the end. God's going to test us. And the question is, are you willing to stand to the end, no matter what's asked of you? I'm making that commitment. I hope all of you are, but we're going to fight this thing out until God is restored to his proper place in the United States of America and the world, which is we're under him. We're not God. We're not God. There is God, and then there's us. There's a difference there. So, and we're learning to be more like him, but it's a process, and everybody's in a different stage in the process. We're never going to complete that until he takes us home. And I'm not sure it's going to be complete then, because there is only one God, our Father in heaven. That's it. And so with that said, everybody, thanks for being here today, Ralph and Karen, and to everyone else. Since I'm the only one with hands, I guess I'll be doing the hands. God bless you. God bless all those whom you love, and God bless America. Make it a great day. Make it a great weekend. It's Memorial Weekend coming up. We hope that everybody has a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And remember what we're remembering in Memorial Weekend. This is it's a solemn day, but a happy day to celebrate those things which people have literally paid the ultimate price for. And we honor all of those people who have paid the ultimate price. We honor them, and we celebrate the freedoms and the liberty that we have because they were willing to stand unwavering. Now it's our turn. So let's go and make it great. It's going to be great. So, and we'll talk to you next week, Monday. Have a great weekend. I will be posting this weekend. I'm going to a really fun event. I expect to be very fun. And so expect some awesome posts to come out of Saturday night, and we'll see you next week. Not next week, probably not Monday. It'll be Tuesday. So I'll see you Tuesday of next week. Have a great, and I mean a great weekend.